Crazy hair day. It's Brian of London in my forest, Bereshit forest in the middle of Tel Aviv. I can't get off this subject, can I? I was planning something as I've been walking through the forest of what I'm going to say, and then I just read Douglas Murray's piece from a few hours ago, overnight, in the National Review in America. Excellent. And Douglas gets it, actually, and I'm going to riff on something about Trump and something about Tommy Robinson that so few people bother to do. What is the most fundamental issue that drives Trump into politics? Everybody's thinking about this, but I think most people, or they missed during the entire presidential campaign, of all the words, the hours and hours, the centuries of punditry, I think most people missed an amazing thing deep in the heart of Donald Trump and his decision to turn his life upside down and run for president. It was not to get an upgrade from a 757 to a 747. I think he had a nice enough plane for anybody. No, I think that for a man who really first made his name building skyscrapers in Manhattan, I think seeing the two biggest and best skyscrapers in Manhattan knocked over in a single morning, I think that had a huge impact on his life. So I think Trump is much more driven by what jihad and Islam actually are than people wanted to dwell on. He said a few things. He read his snake poem, and he tied his snake poem, sometimes he tied it to immigration, but often he tied the metaphor of the snake to Islam itself. And he said also, Islam, he said what the most prescient thing he said on the entire campaign about Islam was, he said, Islam seems to hate us. Islam seems to hate us. And that actually is the smartest thing anybody has said in public life about Islam for the last 20 years, back to 9/11 basically. It's a lot smarter than Islam is peace, as Bush said, with the Islamic heavies standing next to him at the mosque a few days after 9/11. Trump said, Islam seems to have a lot of hate for us. Why? Now, Tommy Robinson, I was writing my rebuttal to Haaretz. Haaretz is Israel's far-left newspaper that frequently writes disgusting things about Israel. It's a total and utter travesty of a piece of journalism. It's got actually very low readership in Israel, but it is the paper of record outside of the country. So Haaretz's English edition is kind of the most widely read by the intelligentsia, the New York salons and the London, that's what Haaretz is. Anyway, understandably, their opinion editor wrote the most ridiculous piece about Tommy Robinson, included one of my periscopes from outside the British Embassy, quoted me saying that Arabs are on all sides wanting to kill us, which is pretty much largely true. Sorry, that's a nationalist thing to say, but yeah, there are Arabs around Israel that want to kill us, within and without, unless you count, of course, I missed the small detail of the technical detail of the Persians sitting in southern Syria, who hopefully we'll take care of soon. They're not quite on our borders unless we let them be. Anyway, so Haaretz quoted me. They wrote the article, but the same old crap. Tommy's a neo-Nazi. Any Jew who is deceived by his message is stupid and being deceived. So I am that Jew. I am the one who's been deceived, and I've been deceived bigger than anyone else because I've spent more time talking to him, interacting with him. I mean, I don't know how many phone calls I've had with him over the years, and when that started, and it culminated in me bringing him to Israel and spending a week, staying in the same hotel rooms. In one night we shared a room. It was a huge room in Jerusalem, gorgeous hotel, the American Colony Hotel. It's where all the international journalists stay, and I discovered why. It's not kosher, there's bacon at breakfast. Small detail. Anyway, elsewhere, separate rooms. But I know Tommy pretty well. If he's been pulling if he's been pulling wool over my eyes, and he harbours some secret anti-Jewish, anti-Zionist conspiracy, triple brackets around every name type bullshit, You know, he's hidden it well for 5 or 6 years of interaction with him. What crap. Anyway, I was writing this article for them, and it made me go back and look at the history of Tommy. And of course, his very, very first appearance on the BBC was wearing a balaclava, which is never a good look, okay? It's never a good look. But what was he doing in the balaclava? Well, he and his mates, some of whom were black because they were wearing short sleeves. So you could see there's like black guys and Tommy, the little guy, and then I think Kevin's there because he's a lot taller. You know, knowing everybody now, I can pretty much see who was there. And what were they doing? They had a big sign saying black and white unite, and they were burning a swastika. They were burning a swastika, and through the entire time of the EDL, the Nazis hated them. The real racists, the BNP, they hated the EDL. They hated Tommy. So this journalist writes this nonsense. I've written a rebuttal. I'll submit that to Haaretz on Sunday. It's pretty strong. I don't go and do each point. I tell a story because I think stories are the way to go. And we'll see if it gets published in Haaretz. I mean, I'm me. I'm not going to tailor what I write. If it doesn't get published in Haaretz, of course, there's many other places. I think Alt News Media will publish it in the UK, probably. But back to what drives Tommy. Tommy's first appearance on the BBC was wearing a balaclava and burning a swastika. He's a Nazi. His second appearance, or his second significant appearance, was sitting in the chair opposite Jeremy Paxman. Okay, now, you have to know this, and Douglas Murray writes that of all the people in the UK who've never had a presumption of innocence placed upon them, it is Tommy Robinson. He is always guilty. He is guilty of whatever it is you want him to be guilty of, ab initio, without any evidence, without studying the facts. What did the BBC do? They thought, like throwing the Christians to the lions in the Colosseum, we'll stick Tommy Robinson. He's never done any significant media. He's had a print interview with The Guardian. That's what he's done. He's done nothing. He's not even done YouTube videos. YouTube barely existed in those days. We'll stick him in a chair opposite Jeremy Paxman. Paxman, at his height, he was the destroyer of politicians. He ended 30-year political careers in that seat. And they're going to stick stupid little runty, working class, can't speak proper Tommy Robinson from Luton Airport. We're going to make fun of it like the adverts for Cinzano or whatever it was, or Martini. We're going to stick Luton lad, football hooligan, ruffian, convicted fraudster, convicted assaulter. We're going to stick him in a chair opposite Jeremy Paxman. The Lion is going to maul this guy to death. And what happened? They gave it the full BBC treatment. They gave it the full neo-Nazi build-up. These guys are thugs. They're on the street. They're causing trouble. They're making the police work. They're a bunch of Nazis. And then it cuts to the studio. And Jeremy Paxman kicks it off with one of his gotcha questions. Tommy handles it. Then Jeremy Paxman hits him again with another gotcha question. And then Tommy starts not just to answer, he starts to punch back hard. And he says, he brings it to himself, to his personal experience. Do you have a family member who was taken away from you and who disappeared and went into this Islamic gang and was raped and became part of them, that she couldn't come back to her family? Does this happen to you? Do you know anyone that's happened to? He knew it had happened to his family. It had happened to girls he had gone to school with. He had seen his mates beaten by Muslims. He had seen the divisions in the playgrounds. They were not on racial lines. All his friends are mixed race. I know that. I've seen him with his friends. The guy, he brought 2 friends with him to Israel. One of them was black. One of them was white and middle class. Tommy's divisions in his brain do not run on racial grounds, and they never have. But he knew in the playground when he was 8, it was dividing between kuffar, that's Tommy, and Muslim, infidels and Muslims. And that was the division he put across to Paxman. He not only survived that Paxman interview, he brought up Muslim rape gangs on the BBC before Andrew Norfolk wrote his groundbreaking article. So In many respects, Tommy has been putting rape gangs into the public conversation. The EDL put rape gangs. Now, the BNP did a little bit of it too, but they came at it from a racist background. They were white, and the problem was brown people. The EDL was actually smarter because they correctly diagnosed that the problem was nothing to do with race. It's not Pakistani, it's not Bangladeshi, it's Islam is the root. It's in Easy Meat, it's in Peter McClough's book. Once again, I'm Brian of London, I'm in my forest in Tel Aviv. Tommy brought up rape gangs on the BBC against Paxman. He got his points across. That interview now, there's multiple copies on YouTube, Paxman, Tommy Robinson, but the main one, over 1 million views because it's prescient stuff. So he was arrested outside another one of these rape gang trials. Now, I really do understand the requirements for reporting restrictions. I knew it was a week ago, exactly this time a week ago, because I saw him doing it live and I thought, oh God, Tommy, please. Of all the things you can do to raise awareness of this might not be the smartest one. And I was horrified when he was locked up. But here's a bit of journalism that somebody in the UK could be doing. One, what's been the last 20 years of history of sentences for this kind of contempt of court and for breaking extraordinary reporting restrictions? 3-month sentences up to more than a year sentences? I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't have the time, and I'm not a professional journalist, and I don't have a legal staff to go and look through precedents, but I'd love to know. Secondly, what proportion of these Muslim jihad rape gang trials have these additional reporting restrictions? This was a very complex case, obviously. 29 defendants, dozens, we don't know how many, dozens of victims testifying probably. We don't know the details. I'm not going to report any more details, but I'm not in England. I'm not truly subject to the reporting restrictions. We don't know. And it's so convenient that they can add extra reporting restrictions to these kinds of trials. It's so convenient because I can see that the national press, even when a case happens, and the only place you can find a summary of all of the cases that have happened since 1997 is on Peter McLaughlin's website. Just Google Peter McLaughlin, Easy Meat, PMCLAUTH.com. That website, he's got a tab called Statistics. That lists every one of these trials. And that gives you the statistic that so far 324 people have been convicted, of whom around 85% are Muslim named. The national press doesn't carry that table. There is not one newspaper, if they even deem to cover the next trial, if a trial of 4 men happens in Hastings, as happened a year ago, 4 men convicted, taking girls to their shop. They raped a girl who came in and asked for directions. That was the case in Canterbury that Tommy was outside. That case happened, small local coverage, if any at all. Then there was a conviction, 1 page, done, move on. Doesn't get a lot of national coverage. And when it gets national coverage, nobody lists every other previous case, because when you start to do that, you start to see the scale of it. And again, I've said it in my other Periscope, so I'm going to say it again. These girls are not prostitutes, they are schoolgirl victims of child trafficking and rape, okay? But when you have prostitutes and when you have clients, there are always more clients than prostitutes. Each prostitute services a very large number of men. So we have hundreds of thousands. Sarah Champion was fired from the Labour front bench last year for saying in public that maybe there are 1 million victims, and she's probably right. If there are 1 million victims of this crime, how many perpetrators are there? If there are 100,000 victims, let's say it's 100,000, then there are multi-hundreds of thousands of men who took part in these crimes. Where are they all now? They're not all being prosecuted. So that's what Tommy was bringing attention to. That was the first thing he brought up on the BBC when he had his big interview. That drives him. It's a personal story for him. Just like for Trump, Islam is a personal story for him because 9/11 had a much bigger impact on his life than you guys in the media want to talk about. So you'll come up with other crap. You'll focus on ancillary stuff. Look through his eyes. Look through Trump's eyes. Look at 2 huge buildings falling down in Manhattan. The best the tallest skyscrapers in Manhattan. Look as a skyscraper builder, what that has when you see those tumble down. And look at Tommy. What's the first thing he says? What's the first major topic he brings up on the BBC when he's talking to Paxman? Do you know, I've been in lives, I've done the stupid little I-24 news, which has got half a dozen people and a dog watching. It is, your adrenaline rushes. It's not an easy task going up against Tommy, untrained out of nowhere, Luton lad, is suddenly opposite Paxman. And he puts his points across and he lands the punches. He said afterwards, the crew and the other people in the green room were just looking at him in awe because, and Paxman also, when they cut the mics, Paxman didn't have he had clearly affected Paxman on an emotional level. That's what drives Tommy. He was not doing that for, he can do lots of publicity stunts. I don't think he intended to get arrested. He didn't realize he would get arrested. Maybe he should have done, maybe he shouldn't, but whatever. But he's bringing attention to a problem that can tear the UK apart. He can tear the UK apart because the dribs and drabs of information will eventually add up to the general consciousness. And I think on long term it has a huge problem for the UK because they've got this legal system where juries are supposed to be untainted. So they're going to put people in a jury box and they're going to say to them, what do you know about the crime of multiple men pretending first to befriend girls, drawing them into their confidence, making them feel loved, and then raping them for the next 3 years while threatening to kill their families? What do you think of that crime? You're going to say that to a juror. Do you know anything about that kind of crime? And every juror in the country, every potential juror is either going to be a Muslim and say, I don't know anything about this, or they're going to say, yeah, of course, I've read Easy Meat, I've watched the BBC drama. They're going to be prejudiced, and that's going to be a huge problem. So I'm not sure that the UK's justice system, with its rules on non-prejudiced juries, can survive a crime of this scale going on across the country for so long. Who knows? Maybe they'll have to change some rules. Anyway, I'm Brian of London. I'm in Tel Aviv. It's Friday morning, which is a non-working day here for most people. Kids are still at school, which is fantastic. And it's Shabbat tonight. Shabbat Shalom to my Jewish friends. Have a great weekend to all of you. I hope Tommy is safe. I'm impressed with the support he's received all over the world, from Australia and our rally. There's another rally happening in Tel Aviv this morning that I couldn't go to. And much love to everybody. I don't hate anybody, actually. The ideology of Islam is a real problem, but Muslims are some of the biggest victims of that too. And we have to stop changing attitudes, that's all. Okay, speak